The Baltimore Orioles start fast before getting rocked out of Yankee Stadium. This was a game of two halves. Hang out with me and let's talk about it.
Let's go O's!
What's going on, Birdland and fellow baseball fans everywhere? Welcome to the Baltimore Bops YouTube channel where I cover all things Baltimore Orioles from an everyday fan's perspective. There's no journalism degree, as you can probably tell. There's no big company telling me what to say and what not to say. Just your average Joe who enjoys competition, loves where he's from, loves where his family's from, and represents the Baltimore Orioles. So, if this seems like your kind of content, if you're interested in it, I would strongly encourage you to like, share, subscribe, and comment in the comment section because we got to stick together, right? So, go Birds. Before we get started with today's show, because it's about 5:15 in the morning, I just want to let everybody know, hey, happy 4th of July. Hope you guys have a great time with your family. Enjoy some fireworks tonight and everything that America has to offer. And, if you get a chance, catch a baseball game. If you don't, hey, the Birds and the Yankees come on at 1. So I would encourage you to sit down, hang out with your family, and enjoy that. Baseball and 4th of July just seem synonymous with one another. So without further ado, as aforementioned, the Baltimore Orioles lose to the New York Yankees in Game 1 of the 4-game set, 6-3. And this was really a game of two halves. Baltimore kind of started out hot, and they were able to chase Domingo Germán, who recently just pitched that perfect game. He only went 4 1/3, but Baltimore shot themselves in the foot more frequently than not, and they really had a couple of opportunities to blow the game wide open. So before we get into the game by game, let's get into the box score. Baltimore Orioles had 3 runs, 12 hits, no errors. The New York Yankees had 6 runs, 11 hits, and 1 error. And this is actually a really good sign right here. Gunnar Henderson went 1 for 5. Adley Rutschman had a big game. He went 3 for 5 with a ribby. Anthony Santander went 2 for 4. Ryan O'Hearn went 2 for 4. Ramon Urias went 1 for 4. Cedric Mullins got a base knock. He went 1 for 4. Aaron Hicks went 1 for 4. Adam Frazier went 1 for 4. And Jorge Mateo continued his struggles from behind the plate. And it's sad because Jorge has been phenomenal defensively and on the base paths. But he is struggling mightily from behind the plate. And we may talk about that here in a little bit. But let's get into the play-by-play as far as how the game unfolded. And this is where we'll talk about kind of some situations where some key factors that I guess I noticed throughout the ball game. So the first, top of the second, both teams went 1, 2, 3. Nothing to really report there. Pretty basic. Top of the second is when Germán started getting touched up. So Ryan O'Hearn was able to break up his streak. He singled to center, and then Bader misfielded the ball, trying to come up with it out in center field, and O'Hearn was able to take second on that error. So they gave him an error for the misfield. It was really a single, but he ended up on second. Well, then Ramon comes up, and Ramon singles, puts runners on first and third with no out. So you're feeling real good. Hey, we got an opportunity to have a big inning. Well, then Cedric Mullins comes up and singles. He singles in O'Hearn. Ramon goes to second, and now you're feeling really good. It's 1-0, nobody out, with another runner in scoring position, and Aaron Hicks comes to the plate. So Aaron Hicks, pops out into third, 1 out. Well, Ramon Urias, on the next couple of pitches, basically, gets picked off at second base. Now, so now there's 2 outs. These daggone ads. So now there's 2 outs, and nobody on when it should have been 1 out with still a runner in scoring position. Now, this is just unexcusable to me. It's inexcusable. When you get your secondary lead, okay, at second, unless you're, it's not like he got caught leaning because he was trying to take third. Get your secondary lead when the pitcher moves to the plate. If he's not going to the plate, there's no reason to get a secondary lead, especially if you're not stealing. And the fact that he could get picked off at second base is just, and this is something that's happened. I mean, Gunnar Henderson got picked off at first. He's 22 years old. You kind of expect some things like that to happen every once in a while. But for him to get picked off at second was just inexcusable given the circumstances. And, not only that, when he goes back to the bag, he decides to tag the guy's shoe, his cleat, as opposed to the bag. I mean, I just don't even know how that happens. I really don't. So that was a real weird moment. Now you got 2 out, nobody on, and basically you blow the inning up. And the Birds, who had first and third with nobody out, they end up leaving that inning 1-0. And so 1 run on 3 hits and an error, and it was just inexcusable. It was just inexcusable. So then top third, Baltimore comes back, and Mateo, like I said, he's struggling so bad behind the plate. You can see his hips opening up, and everyone's pitching him outside, and he's getting a healthy dose of cutters and sliders off the plate, and he's just not stepping to the baseball. And it's just that mentality where someone's trying to pull everything, as opposed to just going with the baseball and hitting an oppo. And I really hope that he gets things figured out soon, because his bat, he's an automatic out. I mean, he is, it's kind of like being in the National League last year when the pitcher comes up. It's just almost an automatic out at this point. He's struggling so bad behind the plate. So Mateo strikes out, Henderson singles to left, and then Rutschman doubles to left. So now you got runners on second and third with 1 out. Santander lines out to center before Ryan O'Hearn comes up big again and singles to right, enabling Rutschman to score. So that puts the Birds up 2-0, 3-0. So the Orioles are up 3-0 in the top of the third inning, and Tyler Wells is he's just chugging along. 3-0 Birds, and you're feeling really good about how the Baltimore Orioles were playing and how Tyler Wells was pitching, but you can't help but notice, and this is just a daily ordeal every time Tyler Wells is on the hill, so many of his pitches are elevated, and he is a self-professed fly ball pitcher, but every once in a while you got to get down in the zone, man. And I started thinking about it, when people know that you're going to be, basically middle up, you shrink where they're looking, or where you're looking as far as trying to hit that baseball. So if I know that you're coming belt high almost every pitch, whether it be a hook or you're throwing me a fastball, that kind of gives me a little bit of an advantage. And, Tyler Wells is just constantly up in the strike zone, and he ended up paying for it. Now, what Tyler Wells does is, fortunately enough, he only gives up single shots. He gives up a ton of home runs, but what I will give him is seldomly does it seem that there's anybody on base when he does give up a home run. And in the bottom of the fifth, Donaldson flied out, and then IKF flew out or lined out. So you got 2 outs in the bottom of the fifth, and he's just chugging along, and he leaves an elevated fastball up to Volpe, who takes it over to left center. Now, what's interesting about this, and this is why this is a big turning point in the baseball game, Yankee Stadium was almost full capacity, but they were quiet. I mean, it was just like a bunch of people at the baseball game. Nobody was excited. They were quiet. They were just there, I don't know, to enjoy the ambiance of Yankee Stadium, but you didn't really hear the fans were not in the game until Volpe hit that home run. So then they kind of get into it. You're hearing a little bit more chatter and everything. Well, the next batter ends up going back to back, and Yankee Stadium erupted. And then that's when you kind of really felt the energy change. Um, and then when you get 48,000 people believing, and they get all excited into the baseball game, it's going to change things. And so that gets the Yankees to 3-2. Tyler does end up getting out of the inning, and then he also pitches the sixth. So he goes 6 innings, and he only gives up those two runs. And there's a part of me that's like, hey, great. He only gave up 2 runs, and Tyler Wells another quality start. Plenty of good pitching to get Baltimore and a good chance to win the baseball game. But then when you think about also like how these are avoidable mistakes, like these are self-induced almost. When you stay up in the zone like that, it's just bound to happen. And even though they're only single solo home runs, if they don't hit those home runs, we're talking about a different baseball game still. So that's just my take on it. I wish Tyler would stay a little bit lower in the zone every once in a while, kind of mix it up, because I feel like too many of his pitches are elevated, and he hangs a couple of his curveballs that, they're really good. If you're going to sit on it, you're going to keep that shoulder in. They're pitches that you can drive. And as you saw in that baseball game, you can drive them over the wall. So Baltimore doesn't do anything in the top of the 7th. Yankees in the bottom of the 7th. Volpe reached on an infield single to shortstop. Got a sacrifice to third, Volpe to second, and IKF to third. So now you got 1 out, and then Yankees Cano comes in and pitches. Now, this was super unfortunate because LeMahieu grounded into a fielder's choice to Yankees Cano. So now you got 2 outs. I think runners on second and third, and he works the count to 0-2. And I mean, Yinyer is being Yinyer, and then he just so happens to yank a pitch, just so far outside of Adley's reach that it goes to the backstop, and Volpe is able to score on a wild pitch, which ties the game up at 3. And once again, this was, you got the 2 home runs in the bottom of the 5th that changed the way that the crowd reacted. They got the fan base into the game. And then you got moments like this where Yankees Cano is almost out of that jam. He came in, he's pitching great, and he just yanks a pitch that goes to the backstop and ties the baseball game up. And that was a pivotal part of the game because he was this close to getting out of that jam. Birds don't do anything at the top of the 8th. Cano's still pitching, and Stanton singles to center, and that's when Danny Coulombe comes in. Now, after there's a runner on first, Rizzo singles to right, and Cabrera moves to second, who was the pitch runner for Giancarlo Stanton. So Danny Coulombe was facing his second batter, and he throws just a hanging curveball that Bader smashes for a 3-run shot. And Yankee Stadium went bananas. And that's kind of when you knew, like, the tide is turned, the tide is definitely turned. And the power that was displayed in the latter half of that game, that's what the Yankees can do. I mean, they got a bunch of guys that got pop in their bat. They're not necessarily hitting for average, but you can't just lay pitches belt high in the middle and expect them to ground out. That's not what they're gonna do, and they didn't, and they made the Birds pay, and that kind of was what it was. Holmes comes in and he dominates. He struck out Mateo, struck out Henderson, and then Rutschman grounded out the first. So the Baltimore Orioles lose the first of the 4-game set. That was a difficult one in that, Baltimore had multiple opportunities, like was said, to blow the game open. And once again, they just could not get the hits that were needed to get guys in. They had multiple times, second and third, first and third, runner on second. And so hopefully they can get those things fixed. With the loss, Baltimore goes to 49-34. They're 6 games back at Tampa Bay, who didn't play yesterday. And the New York Yankees move to 47-38, 9 games back at Tampa Bay. And they are only 3 games back of the Baltimore Orioles. Game 2, Kyle Gibson and Clark Schmidt, they're going to go at it. It's going to be a 105 first pitch, weather depending, because I think that there is supposed to be some inclement weather in New York around game time. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually get that first pitch off on time. But like I said, it's a tough game to watch. Hopefully the Birds will get everything fixed. And, we can get in the winners column, especially on July 4th. So, hey, once again, like I said, let me know what you thought about the baseball game. Let me know what you think about Mateo behind the plate. Is that a liability now? Do we need to keep him in there for defense, or do we have some other options that possibly could take his spot? They could be serviceable on the defensive end, but they could also not be an automatic out on the offensive end. Let me know what you think about Kyle Gibson and him trying to get a bounce-back game. We'll see what the Birds can do. It should be an interesting baseball game. Hopefully Kyle will bounce back and they can get the Birds in the win column. So, 105 first pitch, Baltimore at New York. Happy 4th of July. Have a safe day. Have a fun day. Enjoy your time with your family. And at the end of the day, like I always say, go Birds.